Welcome to Movie Bites. Today we're taking a trip down memory lane with Poetic Justice, the 1993 classic that gave us love, loss, and poetry all wrapped up in a road trip through South Central LA. This wasn't just a movie, it was a moment. From the soulful soundtrack to the heartfelt poetry, Poetic Justice captured the raw emotions of grief, healing, and unexpected love. We'll revisit the unforgettable characters, Justice, Lucky, Aisha, Chicago, and many others, and see where the actors behind them are today. So sit back, reminisce, and let's take it back to '93. Justice, played by 26-year-old Janet Jackson in Poetic Justice, was the kind of woman who carried her pain quietly. Life had been cruel to her. She lost her boyfriend to gun violence right in front of her, and after that, love felt like a risk she wasn't willing to take. So she kept to herself, letting her poetry speak for her in ways she couldn't. For Justice, words were more than just lines in a notebook. They were survival. She poured her grief, her dreams, and everything she couldn't say out loud into those poems. They were her way of holding on, of keeping herself together in a world that had already taken too much from her. Then came Lucky, Tupac, persistent and full of charm. At first, she wanted nothing to do with him. Too cocky, too much attitude. But as the road trip went on, something shifted. He wasn't just talking to hear himself speak, he actually listened. He had a daughter he loved, a future he was chasing. And slowly, Justice let herself feel again. Janet Jackson wasn't new to acting when she took on this role. She had already won hearts as Penny on Good Times, and later, she showed her range in Nutty Professor 2, and Why Did I Get Married? But Poetic Justice was different. She wasn't just a singer stepping into a movie, she was Justice. Now 58, Janet is still an icon, but for those who love Poetic Justice, she'll always be the woman behind the braids, the words, and the quiet strength of justice. Aisha, played by 22-year-old Regina King in Poetic Justice, was the kind of friend who kept it real, sometimes too real. Loud, funny, and always ready with a drink in her hand, she was the life of the road trip. Even when she was stirring up drama, Aisha wasn't one to bite her tongue. She loved to clown on people, especially her boyfriend, Chicago. But their relationship? A total mess. They bickered non-stop, throwing shade like it was a sport. And when things finally blew up between them, Aisha didn't just walk away. She let him have it. She wasn't about to let any man disrespect her. But for all her wild energy, Aisha was more than just comic relief. She was that one friend who could make you laugh even when you didn't feel like it. The one who could turn a boring moment into a party. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She was just trying to have a good time and live life on her own terms. At the time, Regina King was already known as Brenda from 227. But Poetic Justice showed a different side of her. This time, she wasn't the responsible one. She was unpredictable, messy, and unforgettable. Now 54, Regina has become one of Hollywood's most respected actresses and directors, with an Oscar and multiple Emmys to her name. For those who grew up on Poetic Justice, she'll always be Aisha, the friend who kept it loud, kept it real, and always had something to say. Chicago, played by 27-year-old Joe Torry in Poetic Justice, 1993, was that dude. The one who thought he was the smoothest guy in the room, but really just got on everybody's nerves. Loud, cocky, and always running his mouth, he swore he was the man. But more than anything, Chicago loved to comb his hair. That man was obsessed with looking neat. If he wasn't talking trash, he was checking his waves, making sure not a single strand was out of place. He loved to clown people, but his favorite target was his girlfriend, Leisha. Their relationship was built on jokes, but there was always an edge to it. The moment she pushed back, his fragile ego couldn't take it. And when things got heated, Chicago showed his true colors, not as the smooth player he pretended to be, but as a man who didn't know how to handle being called out. That moment changed everything. Up until then, he was just annoying. But when he put his hands on Leisha, he crossed the line. And Lucky? He wasn't about to let that slide. Joe Torry played Chicago so well because guys like him exist, the ones who act tough but crumble the second they feel small. Now 59, Torry has had a long career in comedy and acting, starring in films like Back in Business, 1997, and Sprung, 1997, as well as TV shows like Girlfriends, But for Poetic Justice fans, he'll always be Chicago. The dude who talked too much, combed his hair too much, and thought he was untouchable. Until he wasn't. Lucky, played by 21-year-old Tupac in Poetic Justice, was more than just the leading man. He was the heart of the film. He wasn't some flashy, larger-than-life character. He was real. A young father trying to make ends meet, working a steady job as a mail carrier while dealing with the chaos at home. He loved his little girl more than anything, but her mother, his wife, was deep in addiction. And that tore him up. It wasn't just anger, it was frustration, helplessness. He wanted better for his daughter. But how do you protect a child from a mother who won't protect herself? At first, he and Justice clashed. She thought he was just another loudmouth, and he figured she was too closed off. But as the road trip went on, they let their guards down, and he showed what was beneath that tough, street-smart exterior. He was funny, protective, and full of heart. That protective side kicked in when Chicago put his hands on Leisha. Lucky wasn't about to let that slide. He stepped in, no hesitation. But the moment he got home, reality hit him like a truck. His cousin had been killed. Just like that, the little bit of peace he found on the road was ripped away. Tupac gave Lucky a soul. He made him feel like somebody you knew. Even now, decades later, Lucky remains one of his most beloved roles. Though Tupac was tragically killed in 1996, his legacy lives on, not just in music, but in roles like this, where he brought truth, pain, and heart to the screen. Kesha, played by 6-year-old Shannon Johnson in Poetic Justice, 1993, was the light in Lucky's life. When everything else felt unstable, his job, his relationships, even his own sense of direction, Kesha was the one thing that made it all worth it. No matter how frustrated or exhausted he got, she was always in the back of his mind. She was his why. Lucky didn't have it easy. His wife was deep in addiction, and that put a weight on him that most people couldn't understand. But when it came to Kesha, he never wavered. He loved her. He wanted better for her. And even though he couldn't give her the perfect life, he gave her something just as important: his presence, his care, his effort. She was his reason to keep pushing forward, even when the world tried to drag him down. Shannon Johnson was just a child when she played Kesha, and after Poetic Justice, she stepped away from acting. But all these years later, people still remember her. She didn't have to say much. Her role was small, but powerful. She represented something bigger, the innocence and hope that kept Lucky going. Now 38, Shannon may have moved on from Hollywood, but for those who love Poetic Justice, she'll always be Kesha, the little girl who reminded us that no matter how messy life gets, love is always worth holding on to. J-Bone was the kind of dude who never took things too seriously, at least on the surface. Played by Tone Loc, he was Lucky's friend, but their situation had a twist. They shared a baby mama, a woman completely strung out on crack. It wasn't the smoothest setup, but J-Bone didn't let drama weigh him down. He had a son to raise, and that was his priority. If there was one thing J-Bone loved, it was clowning on Lucky. He had a way of getting under his skin, especially when he'd joke that Lucky's daughter was calling him daddy. He wasn't trying to start a fight, he just loved messing with him. Even with all the madness around them, J-Bone still found ways to laugh. And when he wasn't cracking jokes, he was probably posted up, watching cartoons. That was his escape, his way of tuning out the chaos around him. Underneath it all, he was just trying to find moments of peace. Tone Loc brought that effortless cool to J-Bone, the same way he did in his music. By the time Poetic Justice hit in 1993, he was already known for Wild Thing and Funky Cold Medina. Acting came naturally to him. Whether playing a hustler, a troublemaker, or just a laid-back dude, he made it look easy. Now 58, Tone Loc has stepped back from the limelight, but J-Bone remains memorable. He wasn't just a background character. He was that guy you knew, the one who cracked jokes and reminded you to laugh, even in the toughest times. Annie, played by 36-year-old Jennifer Lewis in Poetic Justice, 1993, was the kind of mother every struggling son wishes they had. Firm but loving, no nonsense, but always there when it mattered. She knew her son, Lucky, was trying his best, juggling a job while raising his daughter in a tough situation. And when things got too chaotic at his wife's place, when addiction made that home unsafe, Annie didn't hesitate. She took Lucky and his daughter in, giving them a safe space to breathe. She wasn't one to spoil him, though. She told it like it was, making sure Lucky understood that life wouldn't just hand him anything. He had to work for it. But at the same time, she supported him in a way that so many young black men don't get in movies like this. She gave him a place to land when things got rough, proving that even in the hardest times, family is everything. Jennifer Lewis played Annie with the perfect balance of tough love and warmth. It wasn't a big role, but it was an important one. She made Annie feel real, the kind of mother who didn't have all the answers but did what she could to hold her family together. Now 68, Jennifer Lewis has built an incredible career, known for her powerful roles in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Blackish, and countless films. But in Poetic Justice, she'll always be remembered as Annie, the mother who showed up when it mattered most. Marquel, played by 23-year-old Q-Tip, real name Kamal Ibn John Farid, in Poetic Justice, 1993, didn't get much screen time, but his presence shaped the entire film. He was Justice's boyfriend, a good guy with a laid-back vibe, just enjoying a day out at a drive-in with his girl. But in an instant, everything changed. The moment was brutal. 1 second, he's joking around, and the next, he's gone, shot in the head right in front of Justice. It was the kind of senseless violence that happens too often, and it left a mark on her. His death wasn't just tragic. It hardened Justice, made her retreat into herself, hiding her pain behind poetry and solitude. Even with his short time in the film, Q-Tip made Marquel feel real. He wasn't just some random character meant to die. He was charming, playful, and affectionate with Justice. You could tell she loved him, and when he was taken from her, it made her heartbreak all the more painful. Now 54, Q-Tip is best known as the frontman of A Tribe Called Quest, but his acting career has had its moments too, with roles in films like Prison Song and Brown Sugar. Still, for many fans, his brief but impactful performance in Poetic Justice is unforgettable, a reminder of how quickly life can change and how grief can shape the people left behind. Lloyd Avery II had a presence that stuck with you. He wasn't just playing the tough guy, he became the role. In Poetic Justice, 1993, he was the gunman who took Markel's life at the drive-in, a split-second moment that changed everything for Justice. And if that scene felt eerily real, it's because just 2 years earlier, he was the one who pulled the trigger on Ricky in Boys and the Hood, one of the most devastating moments in movie history. John Singleton saw something in Avery. He had that quiet intensity, that look that made you believe he was dangerous. He didn't need to say much, you just felt it. But off-screen, things were complicated. Hollywood wasn't easy to navigate, and despite his talent, Avery struggled to find roles outside of the ones that made him infamous. Then life took a darker turn. In 2001, he was convicted of a double homicide. 4 years later, in 2005, he was found dead in his prison cell at just 36 years old. It was a tragic, painful ending, one that felt too close to the roles he once played. But Avery was more than the villains he portrayed. He was someone with potential, with a story that could have gone another way. For those who remember him, he wasn't just a movie character. He was a real person, one whose life, talent, and struggles remind us how easily things can slip away. Lloyd, played by Dedrick Gobert, was a familiar face for anyone who's seen Boys in the Hood. In Poetic Justice, he crosses paths with Lucky on the street, and for a moment, it seems like they're just two friends catching up. But it doesn't take long to see where Lloyd's head is at. Their exchange is short but telling. Lloyd casually flashes a gun, letting Lucky know he's on the hunt for some busters to jack. He's not just out for trouble, he's out for revenge. It's revealed that Doughboy, their mutual friend, has been killed, and Lloyd is ready to do something about it. There's an intensity to Lloyd, that same unpredictable energy Dedrick Gobert brought to his roles. He had a way of making characters feel real, young men shaped by their environments, caught up in cycles of violence they couldn't seem to escape. At just 21, Dedrick played Lloyd with a rawness that made you believe every word, every move. Tragically, just a year after Poetic Justice, Dedrick's life was cut short. He was only 23 when he passed, leaving behind a career that could have been so much more. Though his time on screen was brief, his presence was unforgettable. For those who remember him, he'll always be that familiar face. The young talent gone too soon, but never forgotten. Cousin Pete, played by Special K. McRae, was that one guy you meet on a road trip who somehow makes the whole journey unforgettable. Lucky and his friends passed by him along the way, and while Pete wasn't actually related to anyone, Lucky wasn't about to let that stop him. A little quick thinking, a little smooth talking, and just like that, instant family. Pete was warm, welcoming, and most importantly, had a barbecue going. He wasn't about to turn away some hungry travelers, and for a brief moment, the road trip had a detour filled with good food and good vibes. In a film with so much heartbreak and tension, Pete's scene was one of those lighthearted moments that reminded you that sometimes people just show kindness for no reason at all. Special K. McRae was 33 when he played Pete, bringing a laid-back, easygoing energy to the role. Though his time on screen was short, it was memorable. Because who doesn't love a character who brings people together over food? Beyond Poetic Justice, Special K. McRae had roles in Rush, 1991, and China Moon, 1994, showing up in projects that spanned different tones and genres. Now 64, he's stepped away from the spotlight, but for those who love Poetic Justice, he'll always be Cousin Pete, the guy who reminded us that sometimes all it takes to bring people together is a plate of barbecue and a little bit of hospitality. Aunt June, played by the legendary Maya Angelou, is the wise, no-nonsense elder you always find at family gatherings. When Lucky and his friends crash the barbecue in Poetic Justice, she's right there, watching everything, reading the room like only an older woman can. She's not shy about speaking her mind either. When she sees Aisha and Chicago, she straight up asks if they're married. She's not judging, just keeping it real, the way elders do when they've lived long enough to know what's coming. Maya Angelou brought so much presence to Aunt June, even in just a few scenes. She wasn't just playing a character, she was that auntie who's been through life and isn't afraid to drop some wisdom. But her impact on the film went beyond acting. She wrote the poems that Justice recites, giving the movie its heart and soul. By the time Poetic Justice came out in 1993, Angelou was already a legend. She had spent her life using words to inspire and uplift, leaving an impact that went far beyond the screen. She was 65 when she played Aunt June, and continued to change lives until her passing in 2014 at the age of 86. Even in a small role, she left a mark, because that's just who Maya Angelou was. A storyteller, a truth teller, a voice that will never fade. Jessie, played by Tyra Farrell, was the kind of boss everyone wishes they had. She owned the beauty parlor where Justice worked, but more than that, she was a mentor, someone who genuinely cared. Jessie saw the pain Justice was carrying after losing Marquel, and in her own way, tried to guide her through it. She wasn't overbearing, just real. She told Justice not to be so hard on herself, to let go of some of that weight, and most importantly, to trust her heart again. In a movie filled with grief, heartbreak, and healing, Jessie was that steady presence. Someone who had been through life and knew that pain didn't have to define you forever. Tyra Farrell was 31 when she stepped into Jessie's shoes, bringing the same strength and warmth she had already shown in Boys in the Hood as Ricky's mother. Whether playing a grieving mother or a supportive boss, she had a way of making every role feel personal, like someone you knew. Beyond Poetic Justice, Tyra's career has been filled with standout performances. She starred in White Men Can't Jump and Equinox, showing her versatility across different genres. On television, she's made her mark too, including a role in the hit series Empire. Now 63, Tyra Farrell has built a legacy of powerful performances, and Poetic Justice is no exception. Jessie may not have had the most screen time, but her impact was felt. She wasn't just Justice's boss. She was a reminder that healing takes time, but with the right people around you, it's possible. Dexter, played by Keith Washington, was one of the trusted hands at Jessie's beauty parlor. He wasn't just good at what he did, he was really good. The man knew his way around hair, and in a shop full of strong personalities, he held his own with skill and confidence. More than that, he was part of the little community Justice and Aisha had at the salon, a friend who kept things light even when life got heavy. Dexter wasn't just about work. He had that easy charm, the kind that made people feel comfortable in his chair. And whether he was teasing Justice or chatting with Leisha, he brought warmth to the shop, making it feel like more than just a workplace. Keith Washington was 33 when he played Dexter, and while many recognize him for his smooth vocals in R&B, this role showed a different side of him. By the time Poetic Justice hit in 1993, he was already known for Kissing You and Make Time for Love, songs that had solidified him as a romantic balladeer. Acting may not have been his main lane, but in this film, he fit right in. Now 64, Keith has continued to make music and inspire fans with his voice. But for those who love Poetic Justice, he'll always be remembered as Dexter, the talented stylist with a laid-back presence, proving that sometimes the best support comes from the people who simply show up, do their thing, and have your back when you need them. Haywood, played by Roger Guenveur-Smith, was another familiar face at Jesse's beauty parlor. He wasn't just an employee, he was someone Jessie could actually talk to. Whether it was shop drama or her own personal struggles, Haywood was there, listening, giving advice, or just lending an ear when she needed it. In a place filled with strong personalities, he kept things balanced with his calm and easygoing nature. His relationship with Jessie felt real, like two longtime coworkers who had built a friendship beyond just cutting hair. He respected her, she trusted him, and together, they kept things running smoothly, even when the gossip and chaos at the salon got out of hand. Roger Guenveur-Smith was 38 when he played Haywood, but by then, he had already built an impressive career. Known for his ability to bring depth to any character, he was no stranger to playing roles that felt grounded and real. Over the years, he's been in films like Do the Right Thing and Deep Cover, proving time and time again that he's one of those actors who can slip into any role and make it feel lived in. Now 69, Roger is still a force in the industry, known for his one-man stage performances and powerful storytelling. But to Poetic Justice fans, he'll always be Haywood. Shante, played by 17-year-old Maya Campbell, was Lucky's cousin, the one who always had something to say. She wasn't afraid to push his buttons, and the two had a dynamic that felt like real family. Whether it was playful jabs or straight-up disagreements, Shante never backed down from Lucky. She had that fire, that confidence, someone who could hold her own in any conversation. Back then, Maya Campbell's career was full of promise. She had that natural charm and screen presence that made her stand out. Just a few years after Poetic Justice, she became a household name as Tiffany Warren on In the House, starring alongside LL Cool J. She was young, talented, and on the rise. But life took a tragic turn. Maya disappeared from the spotlight as struggles with addiction derailed the bright future many saw for her. In the years that followed, she made headlines for all the wrong reasons, far from the actress who once lit up the screen with so much potential. Now 48, she's been through a lot, and while her story has been filled with challenges, many still hold out hope that she finds her way back. Because beneath the struggles, there's still that talented young woman who made us laugh, who had that spark, who once stood toe-to-toe with legends. And if there's one thing about life, it's never too late for a second chance. And that's a wrap on Poetic Justice, a film that gave us love, loss, and poetry in motion. Its impact still hits just as hard today. From unforgettable performances to timeless storytelling, this classic will always have a place in our hearts. Thanks for riding with us down memory lane. If you enjoyed this trip, be sure to like, comment, and share your favorite Poetic Justice moments. Stay tuned for more throwbacks, more nostalgia, and more movie bites. Until next time, keep the classics alive.